Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my Hardmode guide for Graven Deep, one of the 2 Love Steps DLC dungeons. While doing a blind run for this dungeon, my group and I had a lot of fun figuring out the mechanics, and we hope this could aid you through your own journey. The dungeon has 3 bosses with a hard mode each. I'll be going over every mechanic present in each hard mode. So let's get right into it. First hard mode, the Euphotic Gatekeeper. Let's have a look at his moveset first. Jump and dash. From time to time, the Gatekeeper will perform a jump to one of the spots of slightly raised ground scattered around the area. From this spot on, he will perform a series of dashes sending out small AoEs. If hit by them, you will get staggered, but they don't deal a lot of damage, so you can just block through them. The spot the Gatekeeper jumped to originally will turn into a Pengrid burrow, spawning Pengrid adds. Shortly after he finishes his dash attack, another random spot of raised ground will turn into a Pengrid burrow as well and also start spawning adds. Pengrid adds. The Pengrid adds themselves are not very scary. However, their roar attack will lose armor per tick taken, which can potentially be scary for the tank. Bristlebarb. Every time the boss opens a burrow, he will also place a circular AoE around one random group member. This AoE will start filling out and do a lot of damage to the affected person and anyone standing in the AoE if it completely fills out. Whilst affected with the AoE, the Bristle Pitch synergy will be available to you. This synergy will let you drop the AoE on the floor instead. It will then no longer explode, but leave behind a poison field dealing tick damage to anyone standing in it. If you however use the synergy on top of a burrow, the burrow will close and no AoE will be dropped on the floor. Additionally, the use of the synergy on top of a Pengrid ad will one-shot it. Husk Explosion. The boss also performs a short jump, leaving behind a husk that will explode in a circular AoE shortly after, and spit out smaller poison AoEs in the area. All of these AoEs can simply be blocked. So let's have a look at the strategy now. When the boss starts dashing, it makes sense to position on the location he originally jumped to and set up there while he finishes his dashes. This way no one has to run out of the group and can just use the synergy on the spot, killing the Pengrid and closing the burrow at the same time. Another synergy will be available once the secondary burrow opens shortly afterwards. You can move the boss or simply have the person affected with the Bristlebarb move to the burrow to close it. Second hard mode, Varzunon. Let's first have a look at Varzunon's moveset as well. Skeletal Sacrifices. Once the fight starts, he will summon 4 skeletal sacrifices around the edges of the arena. These skeletal sacrifices have a faint glowing AoE around them and will start moving towards the boss. Once the boss is inside of their AoE, they will jump at him like a blast bone, getting absorbed by the boss. For each absorbed ad, the boss will grow bigger, heal and receive a buff to his damage. Skeletal sacrifices will always spawn at the beginning of the fight. After that, the mechanic is time-based. The skeletal sacrifices cannot be chained or CC'd. Necrotic Rain. From time to time, Varzunon will open a portal over every group member's head, shooting out a swarm of necrotic energy. These projectiles hit pretty hard and become stronger when the boss grows stronger. In this phase, it's best to stay close together so the healer can out-heal the incoming damage. Other than that, the projectiles can be blocked and dodged if needed. Stomp. Varzunon has a stomp attack in form of a growing circular AoE. The size and damage of the stomp AoE depends on the current size of the boss. The damage can be roll dodged. Necrotic Grasp. The boss also has the ability to summon smaller growing AoEs in random places. Once they finish growing, they leave a small AoE behind that deals a high amount of damage when touched. Try to stay away from them as they will likely be a one-shot. If anyone stands in the AoE and survives the incoming damage tick, the person will instead be grabbed by a skeletal hand called Necrotic Cage and will not be able to free themselves. This Necrotic Cage has to be killed in order to free the grasped teammate. Heavy Attack. Varzunon's Heavy Attack will shoot out a series of circular AoEs that stay on the floor for a while. The pattern is always T-shaped, with one line coming out on his left and right, and one line going towards the tank. These AoEs have to be avoided as they will kill everyone including the tank extremely fast. After the heavy attack AoEs are placed, the tank has to slightly shift position, standing right beside the last row of AoEs that spawned on him to set up for the next row of AoEs following the next heavy attack. Positioning is not too important as the first set of AoEs usually disappear shortly after the next is placed. Skeletal Adds. Besides the sacrifices, Varzunon will also spawn skeleton adds that don't deal a lot of damage and should just die in the group's AoE. Most of these adds are melee, but he will also spawn some ranged adds like the skeletal mage that will shoot AoEs into the group. These AoEs can be blocked or simply ignored. Strategy. If the group wishes to do so, the skeletal sacrifices can be killed before reaching the boss. You can gain more time doing so by moving the boss away from the faint glowing AoE around the sacrifices. I would really not recommend doing this though, because the mechanic is time based, so focusing them will make another set of sacrifices to spawn later more likely. Also splitting up is extremely dangerous as the necrotic rain deals a lot of damage. The easiest way to deal with this fight is to just focus Varzunon and ignore the other mechanics. He will heal a little and gain some additional damage, but in the end killing him quickly instead of focusing other mechanics and losing time will make him less scary and the incoming damage more manageable, due to being stacked together in front of the healer instead of split while killing the sacrifices. Last boss Hardmode, Zelvraak The Unbreathing. Let's have a look at Zelvraak's moveset as well. Cone attack. From time to time Zelvraak will shoot a frontal cone. This cone latches onto the person with aggro and moves with them when they do. It does a lot of damage, so it should be avoided. After the cone is shot, the boss will create a faint copy of himself in the spot he was standing when the cone was created. This copy will now also shoot a cone in the direction it is looking when the boss does a cone attack. The copy's cones do not follow the target. The tank has to be careful with these extra cones, as tanking 2 of them at once can be lethal. If the boss is always kept in the same spot, all the copies will also stack there, making it easier to keep track of the cones, as he spawns a new one every time he does the cone attack. Fear mechanic. The boss will from time to time start sucking in dark clouds. Once finished, he will send out a fear, sending anyone hit to the edges of the arena with a screaming skull on top of their head, whilst taking very heavy tick damage and being unable to break free. This mechanic is usually accompanied by a voice line of the boss talking about not averting your eyes. To avoid the mechanic, simply turn your character away from the boss when the fear is about to hit. Which way your camera is facing does not matter, only which way your character is facing. Soul splitting. When soul splitting happens, the boss will pick 2 players in the group. Soul splitting is indicated by dark swirls forming around the affected player's characters. After a couple of seconds, a golden beam will jump out of your chest into one of the corners, forming a golden person running in fear, visualizing your character's soul. You now have to reconnect with your soul as fast as possible, by standing on top of the golden person or running through it. While affected by soul splitting, you can't be healed and you take heavy tick damage, so it's important you run into your soul as fast as possible and pay attention to where it will land before the tick damage sets in. This mechanic seems to ignore the tank, as long as there are at least 2 other players alive and the tank has aggro of the boss. Soul Syphon. Soul Syphon will randomly target one of the players in the group, connecting them to Zelvraak with a beam coming from his staff. While being affected by Soul Syphon, the targeted player is taking tick damage. Afterwards, the boss will gain a new moveset, depending on which class the Soul Syphon group member is playing. The following effect is indicated by a voice line and a colored glow effect. The gained mechanics are the following. Sorcerer. The boss's lich crystals spark with blue electricity. Lightnings will start striking around the arena and leaving behind small AoEs on the floor. These lightning strikes can be kited. Nightblade. The boss's lich crystals glow red, and he gains the crippling grasp mechanic, putting a heavy dot on the group that has to be out-healed. He also from time to time will put down a small AoE that looks like the Nightblade's Consuming Darkness ultimate. We didn't notice this AoE doing anything specific, but if we figure it out in the future, I will put an update in the video's description. Necromancer. The lich crystals will be engulfed in black fire, and the boss will start spawning skeletons. In this phase, players will sometimes have a red target indicator over their heads. This means the players have a blast bone locked onto them, which will walk up and then explode. The explosions can be blocked or dodged, and can get scary fast if multiple are blowing up at the same time. He will also spawn spirit guardians that will gradually heal the boss if they are not killed. Templar. The crystals will glow golden, and the boss will send down small novas with big AoEs around them. Warden. The boss's crystals will glow green, and small ice AoEs will start appearing around the area. If hit by them, you take damage and get stunned. Additionally, there's a big AoE under the boss that doesn't seem to be doing anything besides low tick damage. Just like with the Nightblade AoE, I will put an update in the description if I figure out additional mechanics of this. For now we did not notice any impact coming from it. Dragon Knight. The boss's crystals catch on fire, and he gains an ability called Inferno, shooting out small fire projectiles on everyone in the group. This mechanic has to be out-healed. The split phase. At 75% and 25% of the fight, the boss will turn into a see-through, untargetable version of himself and create 4 copies. These copies will appear on the 4 skeleton piles in the corners of the arena. Each of the piles will soul siphon the closest player and gain their class's abilities in a more restricted area around it. Every couple of seconds the copy will channel Phantasmal Barrage. This can be interrupted. If a copy is not interrupted, it will shoot out a small projectile hitting each group member. The damage can be dodged or blocked, but it's also best to try and interrupt as many as possible. Tombstones. When a player dies during the fight, the location of their death will spawn a tombstone, spawning small skeleton adds in rapid succession. These can quickly become overwhelming if multiple players die or if the dead player isn't revived quickly. They don't have a lot of HP or damage, and die quickly in AoE if they don't get out of hand. During the split phase, the boss does not spawn tombstones. Sea Orbs. Sea Orbs are the boss's most scary mechanic. There are 4 bigger platforms scattered around the arena. They are located between the skeleton piles on entrance, opposite of entrance, left and right. When Sea Orbs are active, a watery glow will appear on the platform, and a small orb will start descending from the ceiling. If this orb touches the glow on the floor, everyone in the group gets one shot, resulting in a wipe. If any damage is dealt to the Sea Orb, it will start floating back up to the ceiling, and once reached, it will start descending again. All 4 platforms and orbs will be active at the same time in certain stages of the fight. While playing the other mechanics, you will always have to pay attention to the position of the orbs and when to attack them. Around the middle of the fight the orbs will disappear for a while, but reappear too shortly after, so this mechanic has to be dealt with throughout the majority of the boss's fight. It is recommended to attack the orbs when they're approximately at the middle between ceiling and floor, so you can give yourself a little bit more time. Brazil. When the boss reaches 50% HP, he will send every group member separately to Brazil. This appears to be a shadowy copy of the usual arena with the boss in the middle, performing a summoning ritual. While in Brazil, you are alone, unable to heal yourself and take tick damage. A glowing ghost will appear in random spots of the arena. You have to run to this ghost and stand on top of it to receive a speed boost and get healed. After that, it will disappear and a new one will spawn. During this time, lost souls will swim from the outside of the arena to the middle. All of them can be killed in one hit, but many of them will spawn. We tried killing them to see if it has any effect on the fight, but did not notice any difference, no matter if we ignored them or not. If we figure out anything else regarding the lost souls, I will put an update into the description. While in Brazil, make sure you don't stand in the summoning circle of the boss in the middle, as it does a lot of damage. After each group member has collected enough glowing ghosts, you will be sent back to the normal arena. Abomination. After returning from Brazil, the boss will spawn a flash abomination. It does a basic ground slam attack and should be focused down by the DDs to not be problematic in the next split phase happening at 25%. Strategy. What worked best for us was to split the Sea Orbs between the healer and the tank. Each of them focuses 2 platforms throughout the entire fight, allowing the damage dealers to focus on damage. During the split phase, each player will be assigned 1 copy to interrupt. The healer and tank will still focus on hitting the Sea Orbs. Once the DDs have killed their respective copies, one of them will take over the tank's copy and one the healer's. This allows the supports to fully focus on the orbs while the DDs interrupt. Radiating regeneration on the healer is extremely useful in this phase, as each group member is split and still affected by their copy's mechanics. When soul splitting happens and both DDs are targeted, the healer can keep on focusing their assigned Sea Orbs. But if the healer and one of the DDs are targeted, the unaffected DD should take over the healer's Sea Orbs until the healer's soul is reclaimed, as this mechanic has to be played very quickly. This concludes my guide to the Graven Deep hard modes. As mentioned before, if I figure out anything in addition to the mentioned mechanics, I will keep you posted in the description of this video. Big thanks to my friends Potato, Devils and Sinclair for helping me with this guide, and also thanks to you for watching. We hope this helps you and you can have as much fun with the hard modes as we did.
change, but so can you. So can you.